Now, having said that, we now move on to more specific delineating points about the seminar. First, let's talk about, we've already talked about the professors, but let's talk about the format. The format will be live and online primarily, unless you're here on the farm or we meet up somewhere else. Okay? So primarily it's going to be online. Everyone here is expected to do their best to show up in the live seminar. Okay? Now, understandably, there are time zone differences because we teach around the world all at the same time. And it makes it impossible for some to meet. However, we are recording this, and therefore it is required. If you do not make the live seminar, it is required that you engage and with the recording and then write a response. Everyone should write a response anyway, whether you're in the live classroom or not. So, the format will go something like this. On Saturday the 12th of October, which is this coming Saturday, Thomas Metzinger, the pretty well-known, very important theorist and philosopher from Germany, will be our guest lecturer. And he'll be talking about his philosophy with respect to the book Being No One. That's this Saturday at 12 Eastern Standard Time. Then, after that happens, we will take a break and then come back into the seminar with Rocky Gango and Fernando Tome on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. for 1 hour. And so, that's also Eastern Standard Time. Okay? And Rocky and Tome, or Gango and Tome, will be teaching 4 units. So we'll have Metzinger seminar, guest lecture rather. Then we'll have 4 units, each for 1 hour a week, starting on Saturday, October the 12th. Repeating on Saturday the next week and until November, I think the 2nd, at 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's the first module. After that module, we'll be meeting together again, in which I will be picking up a focused discussion about, and this will also be happening on Saturdays at 3 p.m., about epistemology. And we'll be talking through the rigors of epistemology. What are the problems? What's at stake? Why do we need to know that we know something as opposed to think we understand, or as opposed to our personal opinion? We know today that one of the main issues at stake is the question of what is true. It's a question that I think philosophy is responsible for applying the tools of philosophy and philosophical thinking and interrogation in the most rigorous form possible in order to derive the conditions for knowledge. What are those conditions that must be in place and operate in certain ways that allow us to move from belief to a justified belief, from just mere opinion to approaching truth? Again, we know today the big problematic is what is in fact true. It is the same question that early philosophers asked. The same question that is fundamental, front and center. And it's a similar dynamic that took place, at least according to Plato's version of it, in ancient Athens in the 4th century BCE, where philosophy began in the olive groves outside the polis, or the city-state of Athens. And in that very practice of meeting up in the olive grove, which I've actually been to. It's quite extraordinary. In the shadows of the temple to Athena, that milieu outside the city, discussing questions, cutting through what is, or making distinctions between, on the one hand, what is belief, and on the other hand, what is true and justified to believe in, and therefore be warranted or authoritative and confident about what you believe, and defending that, being able to defend that belief because it's justifiable. Okay, the tension that rose there is not unlike the tension we are facing today in the context of advanced neoliberal economics, politics that are largely influenced by big money donors and media sourcing. That how do ideas get communicated? The difference between what happened in Athens with philosophers thinking through rigorously what is true and what is justified to believe in and therefore defendable, against the status quo where power, political power, or the reduction down to power and not to truth. The two dialectical tensions, or the dialectical tension between these two polars, belief and interrogating belief and truth versus power and just being able to run the world based on mere power and not on truth. What happened in Athens is echoed today. In Athens, of course, Socrates, the one who is focused his whole life, well, at least the last part of his life, on understanding truth and teaching how to defend that, or interrogating other people's versions of truth. You see this in the dialogue, which is why the dialectic between individuals over themes becomes interesting. That same thing that happened where they put Socrates to death because he didn't conform to what senators, people in power, were saying. It's similar things happening today. And therefore, this course, it behooves us to understand not only the context, which we talked about at the beginning, but also the responsibility to live one's life devoted to interrogating one's own belief, not for the sake of it alone, although that's a worthy philosophical endeavor, but in order to communicate truths to the world in a way that is defendable, in a way that allows others to see what you're saying and to see its correctness or perhaps its weaknesses. And that's why this is very important. So the format will be Saturdays, and this Saturday starting with Metzinger, then Gangel and Tome, and then for 3 Saturdays after that until November the 2nd, and then we'll get back into some pretty rigorous lectures. I will also be sharing with you parts of the manuscript that Alain Badiou, or the book that I wrote with Alain Badiou, having to do with interrogating space in relationship to knowledge. Okay, thanks. Please be in touch with me through your platforms or through the course so that we can carry on this conversation. It's really important that, as some of you are looking at colonialism, Courtney, ideology, Kim, others are looking at more theological forms of resistance, JT, Preston Price looking at different paradigms of understanding sovereignty, and Andrew looking at forms of philosophical understanding, Cody looking at gamification, truth, conditions. I mean, all our researchers are into really interesting aspects that this seminar is designed to clarify and to understand the notion of interrogating one's own beliefs with the understanding that those beliefs were responsible for what we believe in, irrespective of what we're told by sources that are funded by with different outcomes at stake. Our outcome is to search, research. This is the context in which that can happen. And it makes me really just super delighted to be living a life with all of you in this way. So thank you.